Welcome back to Hawk Talk, the official podcast of Hettinger Public School. I'm Joel Janikowski, your host, and we're here to keep you in the loop with the latest school news, offer insights from school board meetings, and dive deep into what makes Hettinger Public School's educational experience truly special by discovering its value for students, parents, and our close-knit community. Today, we're joined by someone who knows the heart of our mission, Brooke Schneider, an enthusiastic 5th, 6th, and 7th grade science teacher right here at Hettinger Public School. Now, what's really exciting about today's episode is that Brooke recently had the chance to participate in the Teacher Innovator Institute in Washington, which is a big program that only a few teachers really get to go to every year. And she's going to share her fresh insights into STEAM education and how it aligns with what the school is trying to do today. Now, don't forget, you can subscribe to Hawk Talk on any podcast platform, whether it be Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, whatever you listen to, whatever you watch on. So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of our upcoming discussions that we're going to have. So now, without further ado, let's jump to today's episode. Okay, thank you very much for tuning in. And Brooke, thank you very much for sitting down with us. I'm very excited to hear what you have coming our way. Lots of big developments, lots of things just going on. So thanks for coming in and talking about it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Awesome. So we were talking a little bit earlier, and one of the main things you kind of wanted to start with was how science is changing. It's evolving. It's changing. What do you mean by that?
So, I mean, science is change, basically, so it should be changing. But for the most part, I mean, when I think about science as a student, I hated science. I never liked science growing up.
Hold on.
So,
you hating science?
Yes.
Interesting. Okay, sorry. That's a little bit of a shocker, but go ahead.
Yes.
Yeah.
Did not like it. And I mean, I don't like the worksheets. I don't like doing vocab. I don't just like reading the textbook, doing the chapter reviews, all that stuff.
Okay.
Which is how I grew up with it.
Yeah.
And then obviously the first couple of years I hated teaching science because I was like, I don't know how to teach this other than how I grew up.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, my students are bored. I don't like this. Something's got to change. And it's either I live my life like this or I do something about it.
I'm still kind of like flabbergasted that you didn't like science, because none of that adds up with like the entity that you kind of become at the school today. Like that's so polar opposite. Okay. So obviously you made a change, but like, okay, so what was your first change? Like, where did you go? I
went online and I did so much research as much as possible. And I just like, I knew I was teaching it wrong, but I didn't know where to go from there. I was like, okay, I should not be teaching chapter reviews, vocab, like just memorize, but I don't know where to go. And so Miss Block and I kind of started going through this route of the new next generation science standards. And we got a professional development where we watched this whole 3-hour thing, and we learned a lot. And it just like,
just all of that.
Yes. It was like, this is where it's supposed to go. I know what I'm doing now.
Okay. It was that big light bulb moment, and you saw like a path forward and everything made sense. And you're like, that's where I'm going.
Yes.
Okay.
So science today is you teach with a phenomena to start. And I mean, in college, we were taught like anticipatory sets where you just like, get them excited about something.
Okay. So you might have to dial back. Big word. Totally threw me off. Anticipatory. You might want to like, so what do you mean by like anticipatory sets? What is that?
You want something to spark their interest, like whether it's a short little game or whether it's, just showing them a really cool photograph or something like that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So it's like an engaging element to it all. Okay. Gotcha. Gotcha.
So the phenomena takes that piece and it wraps the entire lesson around that anticipatory set. So like, for example, let's say I just show my students a video of honeybees just zoomed in, pollinating, doing their thing. That's all they get. They don't get any, like, I don't tell them what's going on. They just watch it. And then from there, they have to draw a model of it. And they can draw really whatever they see. So maybe they see the honeycomb and they start drawing those hexagonal shapes. And they're like, oh, that's interesting because everything is in a very mathematical order. Or maybe they're drawing like the actual insect itself and how like their different body parts, or maybe they notice that it's hairy, or maybe they notice that the queen bee looks different than the drones and different things like that. And it's kind of what they notice. And then they
so basically, not to interrupt, but like so basically you're pretty much just kind of leaving them wide open.
Yes.
And you're letting them interpret it and learn it and observe what they observe uniquely. So that way it's their individual and you're not forcing them through a whole like a a tight situation. You're just letting them be themselves.
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay. Sorry.
Because unfortunately, I mean, what I'm interested in is not what all 25 of my students are interested in. I can't engage all of them in what I like.
That's true.
So we have to figure out how to get them to find what they like,
because that's going to foster intrinsic learning.
Exactly.
That's gonna make them want to just naturally learn on their own and how they learn. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yes. And so then from there you do your modeling, and then we do like a gallery walk where they look at each other's models and they're like, oh, this is really cool. I like that this person did this. And they don't have to be artistic or anything. It's just like, oh, this person, I mean, they can't really draw very well, but they did a really good job explaining how the hexagons are placed.
So then their skill levels come out naturally.
Yeah. And they, they complement each other, and it's just a very engaging process. And then this is the part that's very new, but I force them to ask questions. Like, that's a requirement. So they, as a group or individually, they have 2 minutes and they have to just write as many questions as possible about that video that I just showed them.
Yeah.
Like, why is that bee doing that and the other bee doing this? Or why are they? How did they make those hexagons? I mean, different things like that. Okay. And the whole purpose is to really get them to really involved
and get them engaged. So now I'm assuming because their first initial stage where they're noticing what is interesting to them or what they naturally grab onto, I'm guessing their questions and everything else kind of lead from that often.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. And I mean, we did this last year at the very end of the year, and I mean, there were some crazy questions, but we answered them all because, I mean, that was what they were interested in. Yeah. I mean, it was really, really cool. And that's how I kind of gauged the rest of my science on, is they were really interested in this topic. So I'm going to see if I can keep it going for the next standard that we learned.
Gotcha. So it's like, okay, so you guys like this stuff, so then we're going to tie in this and this because that's what's got your attention.
Yes.
So let's keep going that direction.
Exactly.
Wow.
So it's very student led. And I mean, the whole purpose is anybody has their cell phone, they can just Google what is the mitochondria of the cell. So that's completely obsolete right now. So we have to teach them to find the question to ask. Basically just being, having critical thinking, basically. Exactly. Being able to come up with those questions. Exactly. Wow. Because I mean, that's the future. Oh yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Because like at this point, like you said with Google, I mean, and we won't go far in this. This is almost a separate podcast, but ChatGPT and OpenAI, that's a whole nother section. But yeah, that thinking is going to be what's going to lead that movement, at least from what we see. Yeah. Wow. Okay. Yeah. So I mean, it's a whole process. It doesn't seem like a lot, but it is like, it's very powerful. Yeah. Absolutely. Well, you're basically letting them see and feel and experience that they're in the driver's seat. Yes. And every move that they make is wow. Yes. That's phenomenal. Okay. So that's kind of where that came from. So then, moving from that to kind of how you feel science is changing, let's kind of transition to that a little bit. You had your experience, and that's how that's affected your teaching style as a teacher for the last few years. What have you noticed predominantly that's changing aside of like this curriculum? Like, what have you noticed moving just in the last so odd years that you've taught here? Coding and technology have become massive. I mean, big forefront. They're huge. Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah. Gotcha. So that's kind of the big deal. So we're seeing a change in curriculum. We're seeing technology and coding, all of that really getting infused with all of that. So with that, that's a lot of correlated with something used to be known as STEM, now kind of known as STEAM. And before we get any further, we're going to talk a lot about something that's called STEAM. And I thought maybe it'd be a good idea to kind of explain what that is before we keep saying it over and over again. And people will be like, I have no idea what this is. So yeah, go ahead. If you could maybe explain what STEAM is. Yeah, so STEAM is the combination of science, technology, engineering, art, and math. And I I guess a good way to explain it is if you go into a museum exhibit, I mean, you're immersed in not just the science behind it, but you are given culture. They have art, like creations from different cultures and stuff like that.
Gotcha.
They have
So whether it
technology.
be- okay.
Yeah. And you're just fully immersed. Like when you go into that museum exhibit, you just come out and you just felt it because
they're all entangled together
Yes.
naturally in the real world. So why aren't we teaching them all together?
Exactly. Yep.
Gotcha. Now, and if I'm correct, because I'm still all new to this, is the art thing not only like art, is it also like writing as well? Like the art of writing? I feel like I've heard a few pieces of that, but I have no idea.
I mean, art can be interpreted however you want it to be. So it
that's
can be.
true. So it's a very wide open section.
Yes, you can
there.
add music into it. You can add.
Oh, that's true.
I mean, obviously, culture is very important and stuff like that. So you can go wherever you want with that.
Gotcha. So really kind of what that means is with STEAM is that it's science is kind of expanding beyond its own subject. It's becoming something that kind of umbrellas over them all and how it's all directly connected together. So when we talk about STEAM, that's what we're talking about. And you may hear me say STEM because I'm still learning.
They just added the A into it. So.
Yeah, they just added the A. So that's a whole thing. So also next question. So for those who don't know, Brooke just got back from a big trip to Washington, D.C., and some of us might have seen it on Facebook or, on local news. And I was going to have Brooke kind of explain like what the whole trip was about, what all the hubbub was about, what was the trip? Why did you go? All that stuff.
Okay, so I was in the cafeteria and Maureen was like, hey, you should sign up for this grant. And I was like, okay. And so I start filling out all this paperwork.
So casual.
This is cool.
Yeah.
And I'm like, DC, that would be sweet. I mean, I'm not going to get it, but I'll just sign it. And then it got to the last part where you had to make a 3-minute video. And I was like, oh no, I don't like to be on camera. They said, be goofy, wear a funny hat. And I was like, I don't wear funny hats. Yeah. Like, I don't do that.
Yeah. No, I get that. I get that.
So then I asked Mr. Janikowski to help me. And we made like a cool little video of just like my drawings instead of my face. So I liked that.
Gotcha.
And submitted it. And, I was just kind of like, I'm not going to get this. And in the back of my mind, I was planning my summer and I was like, I don't know why I keep thinking about DC, but like, I just feel like I need to quit planning around it because I'm not going to get it. And then, I mean, across the nation, so many people applied and 30 of us got in. And so it was Easter Monday. I got
So across the nation, there was only 30 that were going to be chosen.
Across the nation. And that's not just like United States property. I mean, I have a co-teacher from Guam, and she taught in Japan before that. I mean,
okay.
Yeah.
So there's
it's vast. A lot of Alaska. I mean, somebody from Hawaii. It's just amazing. Yeah.
Wow. So I mean, really, to get into this it's not easy.
No.
It's just, and I'm assuming there were a lot of applicants.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think kind of what got me in was our rural aspect, because the Smithsonian lady, the education, the superintendent of education at the Smithsonian, I don't know if I have a photograph on there or not, but she spoke to us and talked about like their goals and stuff with diversity and stuff. And rural was actually a huge Smithsonian push because us in North Dakota, I mean, what do we know about the Smithsonian Museum?
Yeah, exactly. Like how, what a better fit than that. That's awesome.
Yes.
Wow. Okay. So you did the video, you got selected, and that was this spring, or was it this winter technically?
Kind of both.
Somewhere in there, somewhere in that transition. And then when did you go specifically?
I left right after the 4th of July for 2 weeks. And they scheduled my plane, booked me, and sent me on my way. And I stayed at the American University, which was, I mean, a pretty prestigious university. So that was really cool to see.
Yeah.
And lived the DC life for 2 weeks. And
wow, that's awesome. And that's a whole program. And how do you know if they've been doing this for a while, if this is kind of like a new program or
started in 2019?
And it's new.
Yeah. So COVID kind of made a hitch on it. They did a couple virtual years, but yes, it's very new and they're very excited to build it. I mean, it's a huge program. It's very cool.
Oh my gosh. That's awesome. Very, very cool. Okay, so right now, what we're going to be doing is we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to go into this next segment where we're going to talk about unpacking STEAM insights. Hey, I got the name right this time. Unpacking STEAM insights, and we're going to have Brooke share some cool videos and photos from her trip and kind of explain what they are, and we'll see you in this next segment. Okay, so we're back from that quick break. We're going to go over some of the things that Brooke saw over at DC and kind of talk about and learn a little bit about it. So, Brooke, why don't you just start off? What do we got right here?
Okay, so I wanted to start off with this photograph because this is the superintendent of the Smithsonian Education Institute. So, I mean, she's a pretty big deal. And I, first of all, wanted to just share that we had breakfast under the space shuttle at the Udvar Hazy Center twice, which was incredible. I mean, catered with...
Oh my gosh.
I mean, it was crazy. But this lady advocated for how much they want to get into rural communities and make an impact and stuff like that. And I am going to have a big push for that. I'm very excited about that.
So quick question. So you're talking about having breakfast under the shuttle, because like literally I didn't hear anything after you said that. Like, so are we talking like a shuttle that's been used?
Yeah.
And has returned?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. So you guys had breakfast, and you know, she's kind of the head of this whole program and everything, and really trying to push out. So anything else you want to talk about with this guy? Are you ready for the next one?
No, I'm ready.
All right. So what do we got here?
Okay. So the next couple photographs, we can just kind of flick through them, but these guys were very important in, I mean, they made a huge spark in my mind thinking about this next grant that we're going to talk about soon.
Ooh, okay.
So that's kind of a little sneak peek.
Exciting. Gotcha.
These are all from the Botanical Gardens in DC.
Okay, so they have a whole big setup over there.
Yes,
with all of
massive.
This.
Most of these are kind of children's areas.
Wow. That's phenomenal.
Some hydroponics and stuff that we are going to get into as well.
So what is hydroponics?
Growing plants without soil.
Oh, so they're only in the water.
Yes.
Essentially. Okay.
Yep.
So and they
water
stay
and some
in
kind
the
of growing
water.
medium. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
That is cool. Okay. All right. And then what's this guy right
Still
here?
hydroponics. Yep. All
Just
kinds of
lots
different.
okay,
yes.
so there's many different ways to do it.
Yes.
Okay.
Those are some tomatoes grown from the hydroponics.
That's some beefy tomatoes.
Yep.
That's amazing.
Yep. Those are the
Okay.
chemicals and stuff that go with it. They're important again for the grant that I'm going to be talking about. So
Okay.
all of that.
That's
Makes me
awesome.
excited watching. And this guy is a horticulturist at the zoo in DC. And he really sparked, I mean, I was very into this ecosystem mindset after all of these photographs and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
And he really got me into some different ideas of nature journaling and data tracking and stuff in nature. He talked a lot about how like bird species are dropping immensely, which impacts insects and impacts the entire ecosystem in general.
Oh, wow.
And so he really just moved me in a way. And I started thinking about how I can connect with NDSU and get my students also data tracking and kind of watching our native species in Hettinger. And so I've been kind of talking to Ben Gomont, and we have some different ideas of basically tracking our native species and seeing how they survive in our environment.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. So he was kind of the big movement behind that. Was he also involved with botanical gardens, or was he a separate?
No, he's a whole
sector?
separate thing, but
Okay.
they all kind of blended together after it all.
Because they all affect each other accordingly.
Yes.
Wow.
Yep.
Okay. And you got to explain this photo.
Okay, so this was a once in a lifetime experience. We got to go indoor skydiving at iFly, and I got to go in 3 times, and I mean, it was just an incredible experience. We got to just jump into this giant fan, kind of like Willy Wonka.
Wow.
Yeah. And you had this guide. You can kind of see his red shirt behind me.
kinda
He's
guiding
holding me
you.
down so I don't fly up into the fan.
Oh
So,
my gosh.
yeah.
So question. So like, what is that feeling like when you're just like, well, I'm just going to jump? Like, how do you just commit to that? Or do they guide you through that process?
I mean, you just kind of go for it.
Okay.
I kind of have this I'm not an adrenaline junkie, I would say, but I can just go for it.
Okay,
Yeah,
so you have that commitment in your being, so you can
you
do
just
that.
don't think about it and just jump.
Oh my gosh, that looks incredibly fun. So how long did you guys get to do that in there?
It was like a minute and a half each time, so it was like a good like 6 minutes of indoor skydiving. And the guy said that
oh my gosh,
a lot of real skydivers go in there and practice basically. And he said he's jumped out of a plane before and it feels exactly the same. So now I don't have to jump out of a plane to,
because you got the safe
I got the experience. Yep.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Okay.
But like we said, everything has a purpose. So before we did this, we actually had an indoor skydiving STEM project. And this is actually the Boy Scouts at one of the DC schools built this. So I took a picture because I want to build it now. And it is a fan basically on the bottom. It's a giant PVC pipe and just basically those big straws that they sell.
That's what those are. Okay.
Yep. And they have a big thing cut in the center. So you put your aircraft inside it and you have to make sure that aircraft stays. First of all, it flies and it doesn't shoot out of the tube.
Okay, so it has to be heavy enough.
Yes.
But it also has to be aerodynamic enough in a way to where it's catching enough air.
Yes. And the one that won had like we talked a lot about shapes and geometric elements and stuff. And I mean, they had the triangle, which is the strongest shape.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So very similar to how a bird is shaped.
Yep.
Oh my gosh.
Yep.
Oh, that's so cool.
This is a picture of Isla, my daughter. And before we even went to DC, we were sent these very cool breakout boxes. And you can kind of see on the top, it has like a code basically, or a riddle.
Oh, okay.
And we had to solve the riddle to even open the lock to get inside. And then inside there was a smaller box with 6 locks. And we had to do all of these different things to unlock the code and stuff. So it was basically like an escape room. And DC gave me a year subscription to this, so I can use this in my classroom whenever I want.
Wow.
Yeah, so I'm very excited about this thing. It was a blast. Matt and I stayed up till 2 a.m. and got them all done, and yeah.
Oh my gosh. That's amazing. Yeah, very much up your alley too.
Yes.
That's cool. Okay. And then this one.
Ozobots. So I've worked with Ozobots before. I have one. I love them. They're very cool. Basically, it's a tiny little robot and you draw a black line on a piece of paper, if you can kind of see on there, and then it follows the black line. But then you can use red, blue, and green markers to write a code for that robot to do different things. So if you want it to turn left, or if you want it to skip a line and jump, or if you want it to do a tornado and spin around.
It can do it just based off of those colors.
Yes.
That's the command or the trigger that causes it to do the next action.
Yes.
Wow.
And I've used it for math to I made them draw like a coordinate plane and draw Hettinger, and they have to drive through Hettinger to different stops and stuff like that.
That's awesome.
But I got 2 more of these from DC. So now I have 3 Ozobots that I can really implement in my classroom.
Wow.
So I'm very excited
only having that one, don't get me wrong, it's still wonderful.
It's nice.
But amongst, what do you usually have, like 20 kids in your classroom ballpark?
Yeah, I have 25 this year for my 6th grade.
Okay, so yeah, even better. So being able to share that across those kids, so it's easier to have more.
Yep.
That's so great. Awesome.
This is a really cool box that we created, and we soldered all of those pieces together.
Okay.
And I mean, we cut wires, we stripped them. We had to work with the light bulb to make sure that the red wire was connected to the right piece. And it eventually became like this box that glowed, and it had like the TII logo on it and stuff like that.
Oh, wow.
But this really sparked my brain in implementing just the basics. I mean, I can teach my kids how to solder and create the craziest masterpieces with just a simple light bulb like that.
Oh my gosh.
And so now my mind is just like,
that's awesome. And that's the thing, is like having an understanding of those fundamentals. I bet there's a lot of overlap between that and the coding that we just talked about.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
That's awesome.
And so here's kind of an image of what it looks like all kind of put together and stuff. This one, he had like a breadboard on it, but
that's cool.
Yeah.
Very, very cool.
This was a massive project, and makes me very excited for next year, or for this year and everything, because our requirements were to study this moon. So we had Iapetus, and we had to have 3 elements on that. So Iapetus is known as the walnut moon. It has a big ridge across the center, and it makes it look like a walnut.
Okay.
it's half black, half white. It's actually very, like it's always black and white on it.
Okay.
And it has ice on 3/4 of it. And then we had to create this mini golf course using those elements. And it had to have one 3D printing piece. And you can see a couple of them. We have the Iapetus moon that the robot has to drive through.
Okay.
And
Gotcha. Is that purple?
That purple
Okay,
sphere.
gotcha.
Yep.
Okay.
And then it had to have a change of texture. So we have like
a felt? Is that like a felt or a carpet?
yeah, that's like a felt. And then we also have parchment paper.
Oh, okay.
Which
very slippery.
resembles the ice. And then it just drives on normal paper. It had to have a slope, and we had a hard time driving our robot on the slope. This took a very long time. And so we actually made our slope where the ball dropped into it and it slid down to a bottom layer. And so we created a bottom
using
layer
it to your advantage, essentially.
Yes.
So, and for those who don't know, for those who haven't done any kind of robotics before, terrains and surfaces make or break how the robot can move.
Yes.
We've done a little bit of Lego robotics here, and oh my gosh, it is such a game changer, whether it's a good or bad surface to work with.
Yep.
So, gotcha. So it's challenging you to deal with different type of surface types, slope types, and being able to go through specific areas. Like there's a lot of challenges in this.
Yep. And
Wow.
then they had to have a moving part. And I'm going to show a video of my moving part because it also sparked a lot of ideas for me. And we added a light sensor on the bottom where when it landed in the hole, the light lit up. So
Very, very cool. Actually, I think we can switch over. Why don't we switch over
video.
to our video section here?
Okay.
Is this the moving part that
Yes.
you want to show? Okay, so let's go ahead. I'm going to rewind this back just a little bit. We're going to watch this real quick. Now, this is in slow
Yes.
motion, correct? Because it's going really
goes
fast, correct? Here, we're going to go back. We're going to watch that one more time. So that's your moving part that you need. This is part of that whole set, correct?
yes.
Okay.
And the cool thing about this moving part is it's just a basic DC motor. If you can see that yellow thing in the back, that's a DC motor.
Oh,
It's
okay.
set onto a 3D printed mount, basically. And it's just taped to a popsicle stick.
But engineering wise, it
Yes.
worked. It solved the problem.
And it's like, I mean, my kids know how to make a basic circuit. And it's like, what do they do with that? So now it's like, how do we use these DC motors, these circuits, and implement them into a bigger piece? Like now you
Gotcha.
have the skills, put them into an actual
Put them into
idea.
use.
Yes.
Wow, that's phenomenal. Did we want to show that other one being that
Yeah.
it's correlated
Yeah.
with it?
So the ball,
Okay, so we'll
Yep.
play this guy.
here's the Sphero. He's a robot. You had to code him to do all this. He's going fast. Yeah.
All right, so we'll go back. We'll watch that one more time here.
Okay. So he has to drive through the moon.
And I think I can even control the speed. Let's control the speed of this guy really quick. So we'll go, can we go half the speed? Oh, there we go.
Okay. So he goes through the moon, through the middle, through the nutcracker, and then down the tunnel. And this time the light did not light up, which stinks, but
Gotcha.
yes.
So yeah, there's definitely a lot going on with this setup, and it happens in a very short amount of time, and that's because of how you guys coded it, essentially.
Yes. So basically, we're used to just teaching just coding, like here, code it, make it do something. Now, instead, build the project, add the coding into the project.
Gotcha.
So it's not like the main piece anymore. It's just a side piece that goes with it, which I think is a really good step.
That's awesome. That's really awesome. Now, did you have other videos, I believe, or would you like to go back to some of these?
We can go
slice
to
of
the
it?
next video. That's
Okay,
fine.
let's take a look here.
Yeah. Here's another piece of just basic circuits and using them in normal projects. Let's say we want to do a project about the night sky. I mean, the kids could literally build a basic circuit with that. That is just copper tape. It's not even a wire. And
Wow.
just a tiny little light bulb these guys invented. And yeah, this one's kind of cool because it's a magnet sensor. So the magnet is actually turning the light on and off.
So
by
that's
switching it.
what's completing the connection.
Yep.
Wow, that's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go to that next one here.
And this one has no electronics whatsoever. It's called an automata. And it's literally just using different shapes and pegs and stuff. And it's causing movement. So
Okay.
if you can see on the side, it's like a wind-up toy.
Okay, so it's a wind-up toy, but it's
Yeah.
all the gears necessary to make that
Exactly.
work. Okay.
And it's just such cool stuff I've never even thought about doing in my class.
Wow. That's awesome.
So
Here, we'll watch that in real time here. Oh, for cool.
Yeah.
That is really cool.
The possibilities are endless.
Oh my gosh. That's awesome. Okay, so that's all the videos that we have. Let's jump on back to some of your pictures again here. So we have that group. What's going on here?
Okay, so Miss Block and I have been trying to get a makerspace going in our classroom, and a makerspace is kind of different than STEAM in the sense where you're just given a prompt, like create something that can fly for 5 seconds.
Okay.
And it's like very open-ended. You could do anything with it.
Okay.
This one was create the tallest flagpole and have a moving flag. And I automatically was like, I was excited because this was my idea.
Okay.
So
yeah,
everybody was like, pulleys, right? You automatically think pulleys when you think of flagpole.
Yep.
And I was like, let's try something different. And so I took these big straws and I cut them and basically made a peg. And you just like lifted the peg, and the peg had a bunch of like
connections
that just lifted the flag.
Oh,
and then we just locked it. It was just very simple. Yeah. And I was like, gosh. And it ended up being really tall because we didn't have to worry about all the string and
yeah. You go as tall as you want. So basically, as long as it was all connected, you were fine.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's
so
phenomenal.
I'm excited. Now I know Makerspace, Miss Block and I are excited to start pushing that movement throughout our school too.
Wow. That's cool.
And this is my last photo, and I chose this for a reason. This is the National Museum of African Art. And we stopped here for like a half an hour because the museums all close at 5, and we're like, we have this much time and then we'll go and eat and stuff like that. Yeah. And I wasn't expecting anything. I mean, I know nothing about art whatsoever. And this actually was the most impactful museum I went into. It was incredible. The basement was an entire display of dresses that this woman created to represent all of the slaves that were thrown off of the ship. Wow. And yeah, it was just incredible. And it just kind of made me think about culture in a way and how I don't think about culture.
Gotcha.
Because I live in rural North Dakota. We don't have a lot more culture than rural North Dakota.
Yep, absolutely. Well, in a different culture just in general.
It is
so
different.
it's just an awareness to a new perspective.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes. And it was like, I mean, this whole experience was a culture shock for me. I mean, I don't go to big cities. I don't do all of this stuff. So it just made me realize that not in an appropriate way, I need to learn how to expose my students to culture as well.
Gotcha. How like that's also important.
It is so important.
I see. Gotcha.
All culture, Native American culture. I mean, we live in a state that Native Americans did so much with and stuff. So, I mean,
just bringing that into the fold.
So
absolutely.
My goal in TII, we had to make a goal and stuff for this year. And it was basically to create a well-rounded science that implements math and data collection more than I ever have. Implements the science, obviously, and stuff like that. But I really want to figure out how to incorporate culture and art into it. Wow. Because that's a big challenge for me.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, very cool. All right, so we're going to take another really quick break, and we're going to come back in the next segment where how we're bringing these discoveries home and how we're going to, how that impacts the students and the future of our science and STEAM program here at Hettinger Public School. So we'll see you in just a second. Okay, so now we're done with that little break here. We're now in segment 3, which is bringing STEAM discoveries home. So, I mean, obviously we learned a lot in that last section on how much that impacted you. So how did all of that impact, that exposure to all of the STEAM and the art and the culture and the science and the botanical stuff? How did that influence what you think is going to be your teaching this year and moving forward?
So when we do labs and stuff like that, it's very based on the specific skill that we're learning. And then you just kind of never do it again. So like, for example, you do circuits, you just build the circuit, you make the light shine, and then it's like, all right, see you later, circuits. And I mean, I have snap circuits that they play with, but I mean, otherwise.
Okay.
And coding, we do our couple weeks of Lego robotics, and then it's like, all right, that's done coding. We hit that standard, and it doesn't have to be like that. And that's what I'm really excited about is, I mean, if you saw that 3D, that huge project with the golf course, I mean, that's a massive project for a 5th grader to do. But incorporate one moving part into it, or incorporate a circuit into it, make it light up somewhere.
Yeah.
Coding the little robot. We have tried some different robots and stuff that you saw it in that video that is very simple to code. And I'm going to actually order some of those for my kids so they can actually do that. And it's very basic coding, but it's still hitting coding even in a study about iapetus. So,
wow.
Yes.
Okay. So just kind of just bringing all those together and how they all interact with each other and how they aren't just here and gone.
Yes, exactly.
Gotcha. Cool. So then what do you hope moving forward to share with your fellow educators from your experience and from what you've learned? What's the biggest thing you're hoping to just kind of share?
Mainly the importance of science. I mean, we kind of brush it off. I mean, you do the math, you do the English, and it's just science and social studies, do it when you can. And it just can't be like that. Science is so important and social studies is so important. And it doesn't mean you're not learning math and you're not learning English.
Oh yeah, they're in
science.
there.
I mean, like we said, STEAM, it's all integrated. So it's so important. And I mean, it's the future. So I'm really hoping that we all just grasp how important it is.
How intertwined they can be, how you could teach them almost both at the same time because they're so correlated.
Yep.
Wow. Cool. So then, so lastly, before we take a look at something really fun, the last question I have for this segment is, what would be one specific STEAM concept, product, etc., that you found on this trip that just lit your brain on fire? What's the one big one that you're like, oh, I got to show everybody this?
The Pocket Lab.
The Pocket Lab.
Yes.
Okay, so then that might be a fantastic.
It's going to be the segment. Yep.
Yeah. So we're going to transition to that. We're going to go ahead and bring up our desk camera, and we're gonna start talking about the Pocket Lab and some of the gadgets and gizmos that you've brought down here. So let's go on over to that. Okay, so now we're kind of using my makeshift desk cam here, and we're going to kind of go over some of these fancy gadgets that we were talking about. Now, what was that thing that we were just talking about?
This is called a Pocket Lab, and it's just a tiny little square. It doesn't look very exciting. I mean, it's just plastic, but I mean, this is like a $200 piece of plastic. So,
oh my gosh.
Yes. Okay. But if you can already kind of see on the camera since I've picked it up, the computer is actually collecting data on what it's doing. So right now it's set to acceleration.
Okay, so any kind of movement there, I'm sure there's is it a gyroscope? What's the right term for that? That's in there. We have it in our phones. I can't remember what it's called.
I don't know.
But there's a sensor based off of gravity and movements. Gotcha.
Yep. And I'm really excited about this because I've struggled with incorporating data into my science more than, I mean, the basic draw a graph type of thing. And so this is going to take it kind of to the next level.
Wow.
When I talked about doing some different things with my 7th graders, taking them to learn about botanical stuff like that, this is going to be used a lot. So for example, we have this temperature probe I can just hook up to.
Oh, dang.
And we can take temperature of the soil and different things like that if we wanted to.
So the sensor's on the end of that wire there.
Yep. So you can kind of see it. You can see that it's kind of at a steady rate. And then if I put it in my hand and warm it up,
then that temperature is going to, and then that temperature is going to slowly rise.
Yep.
Wow. Okay. So if like you need to get any kind of temperature reading from anything, you just grab this guy and you're good to go.
There it goes. Yep. And then if you let go, it'll change the temperature. This thing tests all kinds of different things. It tests acceleration, velocity, magnetic field, humidity. I mean, everything, dew point. So it's really, really cool. And I'm so excited about this.
So literally is the sky's the limit. It's basically like, it's not the question of like, what can the thing do? It's more like, well, what are you going to do with it?
Exactly.
Wow.
Yep. And there's another one that is way more expensive that I'm also going to order, and it checks ozone and things like that. So that's going to be really big for the next segment when I talk about the grant I just won.
That's awesome. That's exciting. Yep. Okay, so then what's the other gadget that you have here? What's this little car guy?
The car, I don't have it connected, but it basically kind of does the same thing. I can have my kids build different ramps or do different things with it. And then it also will track like the speed, the accelerometer.
Accelerometer.
That's
all that's what it was.
Stuff. Yes.
That's what the thing's called. Okay.
So this is very cool too.
Gotcha. So it's just a fun way to be able to gauge speed and see how fast things are, and it has the sensors built within it.
Exactly.
Very, very cool. Okay. So we're going to take one final break here, and we're going to come back with our final segment where we're going to be talking about paving the STEAM path ahead. Okay, and we're back. We're going to be going over this last segment, which is going to be paving the STEAM path ahead. I'm going to just get right into these questions here, and these are a lot less about what you have done and where you're going to go. This is more a little bit more conceptual, a little bit more more perspective, just your generalized perspective based off of your experience that you've had. So, first of all, how do you believe these recent STEM discoveries that you've had are going to influence the students' perception of science and technology? So basically, how do you think everything that you've learned and in the direction that you're going, how do you feel like that might impact the students?
I'm hoping that they think of science more as asking the right questions, finding real research behind different things like that instead of just believing what everybody's telling them.
Okay.
I hope that they feel curious. I hope that they don't feel like their questions aren't important. I want them to just live their life asking questions and just always using that perspective of science in life.
Gotcha. That willingness to research, to be curious,
to learn more. Exactly.
Cool.
Yes.
That's awesome. So then looking ahead, how do you envision the landscape of STEAM education in rural areas like our own and maybe others, how it's going to evolve in the coming years? Like, how do you foresee this moving forward, whether it be for Hettinger or just in general for small schools?
I mean, we're definitely slower. I mean, it was crazy to see out of the 30 schools and stuff how behind we are in technology.
Oh, wow.
I mean, I felt like we were very compared to the Guam teacher in a lot of aspects and stuff.
Wow.
So, I mean, we are kind of in this little hole where we don't really know what the rest of the world is doing.
Wow.
And I mean, that was very impactful for me, and I'm excited to kind of see us move forward from that.
Okay.
And you can kind of see, I mean, makerspace movement is starting to finally happen and different things like that.
Okay.
But
so you would say, like, not to make a pun off of the botanical garden, but it'd be kind of like Miracle Grow for our science program and STEAM program here. It's a boost. What it did is it helped us move forward at a quicker rate.
I'm excited with the Smithsonian lady, the superintendent. I mean, what they're going to do with rural areas. And I mean, there's a push. It's coming. We're a little slower than the cities.
Gotcha. And that's why they have that program, is that they see the need and they're trying to assess it.
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay. So then I also hear that you got selected for that teacher innovation grant, which, if I'm correct, that has to do with this botanical thing that you were talking about. Why don't you talk about a little bit about that?
Okay. So here we go.
Yeah.
Block and we tried to apply for this grant earlier this year.
Okay.
It's a $10,000 grant. Yeah, huge. And we just wanted to use it to build our STEAM lab and get the equipment that we need to have our students have these things in their hands, basically.
Yeah. And
we didn't get that one. And so we were like, okay, let's take the summer, think about it and stuff. And Block was like, I just really want to do a garden. And I was like, okay, but that's not innovative. We got to think, how can we make this innovative and stuff like that? And then, like I said, I went to the botanical gardens. I went to the zoo and spoke to the horticulturist. And I'm so excited about this, but I had a layover on my plane, so I typed this whole thing out and just got the email last week that we got it. But basically, we're setting aside some money for each teacher, K through 6, and then the sciences and ag sciences from 7 through 12.
Oh, wow.
We'll get some money to use in their classroom to hit the plant standards and try to tie in just the basics of plants and the importance of them.
Wow.
Yep. And then we have a big hydroponics system that is going to be coming.
Okay.
So like I said, all those photographs,
that's where all the inspiration's
Yes.
kind of coming from and
Yep.
all of that. Okay. So this is not only going to affect the school as a whole, it'll affect each individual kind of classroom or where we're teaching
Yep.
science in those areas.
Yep.
Wow.
I'm calling it the HPS Botanical Initiative because it's the entire school that is going to be combined for this.
Okay.
So 5th grade, their standard is hydroponics. I mean, they have to know that plants don't need soil to grow. And then 4th grade, they are North Dakota Studies, same with 8th grade. And so I was like, how can I incorporate them a little bit? And that's where I kind of started thinking, DC has this big initiative with rain gardens around the area. So instead of growing grass or having pavement, rock and stuff like that, they use mulch and they have plants that they grow that are usually like pollinator plants and stuff too.
Okay.
But the purpose is to collect rainwater so that it doesn't run off into the street and into the sewer system and get polluted. It just, just goes through a
holds onto
natural
it.
drainage system. Yeah. And so I was like, I bet we could use that and do a small rain garden in Hettinger. And so I brought it up to Mr. Siemens and he said, I can try and apply for the grant and stuff. And we're going to use some of our money to build a rain garden at Hettinger, which will incorporate native plant species to Hettinger, which is where the North Dakota Studies come in. They're going to research. They don't know this yet, but they're going to research. Yep.
Yeah.
Native species. And then I am hoping that we can co-op with North Dakota Research and soil conservation and local agriculture leaders in our community and see if we can build this really cool garden.
Wow.
I was going to see if Mr. Tim and Mr. Buckmeyer could build like a couple seating areas.
Gotcha.
So
Just
we
in
could,
any way that people can get involved.
Yes.
So we can build this to be as good as possible.
Yep.
Oh my gosh.
Yep. And then the biology and the physics, they're going to be testing soil levels, making sure the water quality. I mean, it's going to be fully science integrated throughout from kindergarten learning that.
So there's going to be many entities helping taking care of this whole project.
That's my goal.
It's all hands-on project, essentially. Oh my gosh.
Yep.
So, and obviously that's, especially that you guys are doing, native grasses and native plants in the area. That's phenomenal also for our ag department as well.
Yes.
Because they get so involved in that. And also too, with us being an agricultural based community, that's just all of that intertwines so well.
Yes.
That's so cool.
Yeah. And we were going to get a greenhouse too for Mac. And our hope is to tie this whole thing into agriculture to blend that. We need to protect our natural environment, our natural ecosystem. We need to take care of these insects and these birds and stuff. But we also need to feed our people. We are a huge agriculture.
Yes.
I mean, we're the breadbasket of the world. So we need agriculture. But that doesn't mean that we need to take all of the habitat. We need to innovate. We need to create different ideas. So,
Gotcha. So as long as we work together, we can possibly find some really cool solutions.
Exactly.
Wow.
So
that's awesome.
I'm very excited. Yes.
Okay. And you just found out last week.
Yes, last Friday. So it's been a week that I've had this bubbling.
Gosh.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, that's really, really exciting. So then that kind of leads me to our last question here, really. So what challenges and opportunities do you anticipate in adapting advanced STEAM concepts for a smaller rural communities education environment? So basically, how can people get involved and what struggles could we possibly be running into moving into the future, and what opportunities, what might we be having moving into the future?
I mean, I said this earlier, since we are kind of in the middle of nowhere, a big struggle is just not knowing what's going on in the world. I mean, not knowing what our other schools doing in their STEAM departments and stuff like that. Not having enough technology is huge. And I know Mr. Janikowski does a wonderful job, so we're working on it. But yes, it's...
So just trying to get around the technology part of it's a big deal, and then just getting hands on deck.
And getting hands on deck. If the community, if you have a job that has anything to do with science in general, I mean, reach out to the teachers because we would love to have you guys in. I've already started talking to other people because, I mean, I'm not the expert. You are the expert. The people who have these jobs
that do it every day. So
yes, I would love to get the kids out there into those environments and bring them these employees in. Any donations to help us get the supplies we need. Like we said, we were building the STEAM room. Yeah. Essentially the old chem lab. It looks like the old chem lab, and we don't want it to look like the old chem lab anymore.
We're changing all of that. Yes. Absolutely.
So we just need help in that way. We want to take our kids out into these different field trips. I mean, we got to get them involved in the science world. So
Gotcha.
any help.
That's awesome. So, and if you want to get a hold of Brooke, or, you know, even just the school in general, you can find our school's website by just simply Googling Hettinger Public School. You'll find us right away. You can even search on that webpage and type in Brooke's name, or you can just call us. We'll be able to figure it out from there. But Brooke, I have to thank you very much for coming in and sharing all of this wonderful information, these grants, all the stuff that you bring into the school. Thank you so much for sharing all of that.
Yes, thank you. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, we're going to wrap that up with this episode today, and we'll call that good. Thank you. All right. So as we wrap up this podcast, we want to take a quick moment and thank Brooke Schneider for sitting down with us and sharing all of her images, videos, all of the awesome gadgets that she had, and also her inspiring journey that she had this summer down at DC. Now, we hope this conversation that we've had has shed light on the incredible potential that lies within our school and, more importantly, within our community. At Hettinger Public School, it's not just about lessons, it's about nurturing curiosity, sparking inspiration, and fostering a love for learning. Now, before we say goodbye, make sure that you stay connected to Hawk Talk by subscribing to us either on YouTube. You can subscribe to the HPS Stream Team, or you can follow us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Wherever you listen to your podcast, you'll be able to find us. Just look for Hawk Talk HPS. You'll be able to find us there. Now, thank you for tuning in. And until next time, remember that education isn't about books and classes. It's about creating a brighter future together.